All right, the purpose of this video is to dig into the PDSA process that we are now doing during this action period. So let's get started. And here we go. So we're going to get into what is a PDSA, Plan, Do, Study, Act. I'm going to walk you through all the processes for how to do it. But a little bit of a heads up as to where are we in the improvement science process. We began with phase 1, where we just kind of got some buy-in from you all and convinced you to sign up. Phase 2 is where we diagnose the problem, and in this current year's NIC, this diagnosis was a little bit kind of easier because of our work with Joe Bowler. The diagnosis is we're going to focus on data science. Phase 3 is that charter, and that's really where we craft that aim statement and the driver diagram and all that sort of stuff. So far we've done phases 1, 2, and 3. The PDSA begins the process of phase 4, where we are going to come up with some change ideas and test those change ideas to see if they indeed work. And then of course phase 5 is you spread it to the rest of the world once you found some sort of solution. All right, and so this is our model for improvement right here, and we call this, just for those in the know, we call this top part the charter, but really it's the stuff you already know. That beginning part is, what are we trying to accomplish? That's our aim statement. And our aim statement ultimately is by June 21, we're going to increase by 10% the percentage of students who meet or exceed the math state standards as measured by the IABs, right? So that's our big aim statement. Now, for the purposes of our Plan, Do, Study, Act, the what are we trying to accomplish is the specific driver diagram, the primary driver that is connected to that aim statement. We, for this NIC, are currently choosing to work on mindset and culture. And then we have to identify, well, how will we know that whatever change we do is an improvement? So that's the kind of data that we're going to be thinking about collecting, so that we know that change that we make is an improvement, because not all change is an improvement. And so we need to think about what kind of data are we going to use to measure whether our change resulted in an improvement. And then this, what change can we make? We're going to call that a change idea. And these 3 boxes and plus the aim statement are things that we've talked about in previous sessions of our NIC. And then this idea of, once you've got that change idea, we're going to do a Plan, Do, Study, Act. So let's talk about what this Plan, Do, Study, Act is. So it's a cycle that we go through. It's this really virtuous cycle that kind of goes through and feeds on itself. And each time we go through this cycle, we're really building knowledge. So let me go through each of these one at a time. So first you plan. And you say, well, what is our change? Or what is it that we're going to try that's different? That's our change idea. And then in this plan section, you also make a prediction. What kinds of things do we think will happen as a result of our change? Hopefully your prediction is a positive one. Otherwise, why are you making the change in the first place? But then you have to also think about, how are you going to conduct your test? How are you going to implement this change? So these are the 3 parts to the plan. What's your change? What is your prediction as a result of that change? And lastly, let's specifically plan how we are going to implement that change. Once you've done that, you go into the do portion of your Plan, Do, Study, Act cycle. And that's where you actually execute your change idea from the plan section. And you are collecting the data that you mentioned up here. You're collecting your data, which might mean formal data, it might be informal data, it might be qualitative, it might be quantitative, whatever kind of data you're collecting. That's where you collect the data and you document that data somehow, right? That's the do. Then the study is, you compare the results that you collected here with the predictions you made in the plan section. So what happened as a result of this change idea? What happened? Did you collect the data that you were expecting? Did you not collect the data that you were expecting? Did you get the results that you were expecting? So the study is really where you take that data and you match it up against your prediction to try and learn something. And then the last section is the act, and that's really where you make your plans for the next steps as you go through this cycle again. And really the mantra for your next steps is adapt, adopt, and abandon. Are we going to stick with the change but adapt it in some fashion, tweak it in some way? Are we going to implement this change as a permanent part? That's the adopt. Are we going to implement this change as a permanent part of our culture? Or are we going to abandon this change because it was off track altogether? In which case we need to come up with a brand new change idea. And so that's the plan, do, study, act cycle. What's your change? Collect some data and do it. Study your data and then act on your data. So plan it and think about what data, execute it and collect your data, study your data, and then act on your analysis, all right? And you're going to do this cycle numerous times, and that's how we develop knowledge, and that's how we build a body of understanding of the problem that we're trying to solve and working our way towards a solution. In fact, improvement science, we often call this failing our way towards a success, because each plan, do, study, act is going to reveal some deeper understanding so that you can continue doing your plan, do, study, act, so that you can continue doing your plan, do, study, act, and you're going to fail your way towards a success. Let me walk you through an example of what it is I'm talking about here. And so let's use Los Banos as an example. We're going to talk about, and I'm inventing an understanding of their change idea. So Los Banos said, hey, we're going to use perfect quiz protocol. Great. So let's use that as a change idea. And this is fiction. So Los Banos, please don't just copy me because I'm totally making this up off the top of my head. So here's an example of a template of the PDSA process, and it's important that we document everything that we're doing. Why? Because as you write in your name, and this is cycle 1, and you're gonna record your cycle date. Are we doing a PDSA over a week worth of days, a month's worth of days? Now I just pretended it's a month's worth of days. Whatever. But the reason it's important to document all this is because I've personally been involved in improvement science endeavors where we had 17 cycles. And so it's important that we document each PDSA cycle, because I'll tell you the truth. The truth is, pretty quickly after about 4 or 5 PDSA cycles, when we began proposing new change ideas, we already started duplicating previous change ideas that we already documented didn't work. Fortunately, we had documented that. So when somebody down in cycle 7 was proposing a new change idea, somebody else was able to thumb through the previous PDSAs and say, well, that's a lot like PDSA 2. So how are we going to tweak your idea for PDSA 7 in light of the fact that we already tried it way back in PDSA 2? So that's why it's important for you to document your thinking right here and indicate which cycle you're on, because you're going to go through this cycle. Depending on the size of the problem you're trying to solve, you might go through this PDSA cycle many, many times. Name, cycle, date, range. All right. And then right here is where you indicate your change. What kind of change is your change idea? So document it. So in this case, we will implement the perfect quiz protocol every Thursday. You make some predictions. Teachers will conduct PQPs and gain a better understanding of what students know and don't know. Maybe the student scores will go up. So there's our prediction. And then down here is where you list the steps that everybody will need to do in order to execute this plan and collect the necessary data, right? So that's the first thing you do. Now, then everybody goes to their room and they implement the plan, whatever the plan, whether the plan is a daily basis, a weekly basis, whatever. Everybody leaves and they go implement the plan together on their own. And then you come back later at some point, maybe at the end of your date range up here, and you report what happened. And each person is going to report out. You might list specific names here. I wrote a general report of what happened, because this is just fiction. But you might say, Teacher A, this is what happened. Teacher B, this is what happened. Teacher C, this is what happened. So your do, where you're reporting what happened, may be listed out on a teacher by teacher basis, or it might be listed out on a team-wide basis. All right. And what does that data? Remember, that do is where you collected the data and now you're reporting out on the data. All right. Now, what does that data look like? It doesn't have to be, oopsies, there we go. It does not have to be super formal like IABs. IABs isn't a part of our improvement plan, improvement science, the NIC, but right now it doesn't have to be super formal like tests and quizzes. It can be something as simple as a piece of paper and you taking tally marks of student behaviors or whatever. So it does not have to be super official kind of data, but you do need to collect that data, right? Because once you've done that, you've collected your data and you've reported on it, now you're going to study it. Let's look at the data. Well, we expected to see scores go up, but there was some improvement, but it was scattered, whatever your results are, where you're comparing the data that you collected in the do with your predictions from the plan. And we believe we need to be more successful in actually completing the protocol each Thursday, because we often ran out of time during the cycle. All right. So that's the idea, is you just record some sort of comparison between the data you collected and the predictions you made. What did you learn? What kind of surprises did you experience? I will tell you, in some previous improvement science NICs that I've done, there were surprises. For example, we did our plan, we discussed what kind of data we're going to collect, and then everybody, we left, we thought we were all on the same page, but then in the moment, when everybody was in the classrooms teaching, all of a sudden we developed this real understanding that we weren't very clear about what constituted tallies, and like what kind of student behavior were two kids doing that counts as a tally mark versus not as a tally mark. So that's where your surprises are real. And so when things don't go as planned, that's okay. That's fully expected, and you're going to record your surprises right here. And then lastly, the act. This is where you decide to adapt, adopt, or abandon. You make some ideas for what you're going to do for the next cycle through that PDSA process, that cycle number 2. So we'll use Desmos as a platform for conducting the PQP. Students will get feedback quicker. Okay, so that's the idea. And really the goal is we're going to go through this PDSA process numerous times. Each time we're going to build our understanding of what's going on. And right now we are here at just basically making a hunch. We're acting on a hunch, we're collecting some data, and we are beginning the process of developing a body of knowledge that is eventually going to lead to a real live improvement. All right, so just a heads up. You are right here at the very beginning of a very long journey of collecting a lot of PDSAs and doing that cycle numerous times. So I will tell you there's a couple of templates that we're going to be providing for you. Probably maybe we can add another 1 or 2 additional templates, but right now we have 2 PDSA templates. And I will tell you the reason why we give you choice for templates. They both essentially have the exact same information. But what I've learned doing PDSAs is sometimes some forms as I'm filling them out, they just feel laborious, and it feels like more work than I want it to be. And so we are giving you choice to choose which PDSA form you want to use. In fact, for one cycle, you might use one form, and then another cycle, you might use a different form, because not only are you trying to solve a problem in math, but you're also trying to solve what kind of form works best for your community, and which one feels like it's the least academic and the least work. We never want the forms that you're using and the documentation that you're doing to get in the way of the actual process. So go ahead and do some experimentation with regards to which template you use. All right, and then so you can click on either one of these, and I'm going to click on both that one, and I'll click on this one just to show you. You've got these two templates right here, and this is the template I just used as your demo right there with the fictional Los Banos change idea. And then, but if you want, you might want to experiment with this one, because this form has all the same plan, do, study, act kind of stuff. It just may speak to you. We're going to add additional forms now that you can choose from, templates that you can choose from. So where are those? So when you go to the course, our eLearn, you can click on the team folders right here, right there, bam, team folders. That's going to open up all of our team folders. Right here is the folder for the templates that you have at your disposal. So when you click on this, you get those same two forms that I already showed you right here. And then I'm going to use McSwain as our fictional one. So you have inside your team folder, you have a folder where you are going to collect all your PDSAs, and any data that students might be you might be collecting is going to be dumped in here. So an example of that is you might be collecting data on a piece of paper, and you're just doing tally marks of whatever. And so in order to memorialize that and keep it, you're going to take a photo of it and upload it into this data folder right here, this plan, do, study, act folder right here, right? And that's where you're going to keep a collection of all your PDSA forms and your data that goes with each cycle. We are going to be supporting you in your data consolidation days when we visit with you, virtually probably, as we walk you through the process of doing this, choosing a form, going through the PDSA process, helping you plan, think about what data to collect, and then doing it, and then collecting that data, and then studying the data. What kinds of decisions can we make from the data that we collected versus the plan that we had predicted, and then act on it again. So we're going to support you throughout that entire process. And that wraps up a quick overview of the PDSA process that you're going to be doing. And during this action period, we are hoping you are going to go through the cycle one time. And I believe the deadline is sometime in February. It feels like it's a long way away, but we actually have Thanksgiving break and Christmas break and all that sort of stuff. So, but we're hoping during this action period, you do the process, the PDSA cycle, one time. If at any time you have any questions, contact one of the coordinators who will support you every step of the way.